Hello there and welcome to Rouse Every Weekend, and this is part of my new diversified content that you'll find on the channel. You saw the other day a bit of a sketch on Wolves fans. There'll be more of that later in the week or next week perhaps, but today I'm going to be talking about music, another one of my great passions and something that I enjoy a lot, and you'll tell by the title that we're talking today about Oasis, my favourite band. Those of you who do know me in real life will know that I am a huge Oasis fan, so I thought I'd start off my whole sort of music section of this YouTube channel by talking about my favourite Noel Gallagher albums in particular. So I haven't included the BDI albums or Liam Gallagher's 2 solo albums because I'm not too familiar with those. So there's 12 albums in total that I'll be looking at. Starting from Definitely Maybe and then finishing with the Black Star Dancing, This Is The Place and Blue Moon Rising EPs that were released over 2019, 2020. I've included them as one sort of album. Between them there's about 9 songs on there. And then I've ranked them in order from least favourite to most favourite. So in the comments, if you are an Oasis fan or if you're not an Oasis fan, then let me know in the comments your favourite order. So starting off in 12th place, I've got Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. They released this in the year 2000 after the crest of the wave that they've been... So in 12th place, I've gone for Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. This was the 4th album that Oasis released, and it sort of showed Noel's fatigue when it came to songwriting. There was not many good songs on this album at all. However, when I first got into Oasis in about 2004, this was one of my favourite albums. I really liked Go Let It Out, which I think is still a great song, and Noel plays it live now. But there's a lot of guff on that album, a lot of really poor songs, like overblown ballads that not really about anything. Sunday Morning Call is terrible. Roll It Over My Soul, that's, oh gosh, awful. Then Where Did It All Go Wrong is quite a good song. The first song on the album, Effin' in the Bushes, is a very good song as well, which Oasis used until they split up as their entrance music. But yeah, overall their weakest effort. Now in 11th place, I've gone for Dig Out Your Soul, which was their final album in 2008. I'm quite pleased that I actually got to see Oasis before they split up, and it was on this tour. But what I do remember is sort of waiting for those songs to end. There are a couple of standout tracks. I'm Out of Time, which is Liam's homage to John Lennon. There's a couple of sound clips of John Lennon speaking from his final interview on BBC. Waiting for the Rapture, I think, is one of my maybe all-time favourite Oasis songs. I'll do another video on that if there's any sort of interest with that at another time. And Falling Down is another good song as well, but there are a lot of slow moments, a lot of times where the album drags on, and they're obviously trying to be experimental or a bit Beatles-esque, but you know, there's not very many positive good moments in that. In 10th position, I've gone for Noel's most recent release, which is Black Star Dancing, This Is The Place and Blue Moon Rising. There are a couple of really good songs on this, and I'd say that the Blue Moon Rising EP, the 3 songs on that, are the best 3 of the 3 EPs. But it does seem as if Noel has been affected by working with David Holmes in perhaps not the best way. Noel's songwriting seems to have gone from writing huge anthems to Match of the Day, Goal of the Month theme music, or title loading music from a computer game or something. There's a couple of songs that I just don't quite get on these EPs. In 9th place, we've got Chasing Yesterday, which was Noel's second solo album with the High Flying Birds in 2015. When this album came out, I really liked it. Loved lots of the songs. The Riverman is a great start to the album. Lock All the Doors is okay. You Know We Can't Go Back. There's some really strong songs on there. But what I'm sort of judging these albums on is their longevity, in how many times I return to the album or how many times I return to certain songs on it. And apart from a couple of them, there's very little time for me to return back to this album, unfortunately. There is also a version of Lock All the Doors sung by Liam, because this was a song that Noel wrote back in 1993 or something, before Definitely Maybe came out, and it's so much better with Liam singing it, so much better. So it's a shame really that Noel took it and made it into what he did, because I think it could have been a much better Oasis song. In 8th place, I've gone for Who Built the Moon. This is Noel's last album release in 2017. Some really, really good moments on this. I do enjoy this album a lot, and I think there's some really strong moments all the way through it. However, I can't put it any higher at the moment because I feel like it hasn't had the time to grow on me like some of the other albums have had. But as I mentioned earlier, he's collaborated with David Holmes, who's made Noel think in a completely different way when it comes to writing an album. He went into the studio with no music whatsoever, and he was told to stop sounding like Oasis. That sounds too much like Oasis. And there's a couple of really good songs on the album because of that. Mine personal favourite is She Taught Me How to Fly. I think that's a brilliant song, and I think the story goes that he was trying to write a song for Blondie. Imagine you're writing a song for Blondie, and it's a really, really good song, I think. Holy Mountain, with that little loop or the sample from, I think it's called the Ice Bubblegum Kid or something like that, I think is what it's called, from a 1960s track. It's a really, really catchy tune. And then Fort Knox, the opening track as well, which I think Noel said was inspired by Kanye West, which is unbelievable, really. In 7th place for me is Don't Believe the Truth from 2005. My first album that I remember looking forward to coming out. I wasn't really a music fan as a early teenager, but in my mid-teens I did start getting into certain bands, and Oasis being the main one of them. And looking back now, there were some really, really good moments on that album. Lila, The Importance of Being Idle, Let There Be Love I used to like at the time, but I don't really like it anymore. I think some of these songs I've grown out of liking. I don't know if that happens to anybody else as well. But there's not many songs that I return to on this album. There's a long part in the record with this part of the queue, or Keep the Dream Alive. There's a few songs in that, but I just think, if they'd have just been replaced with other ones. But I think you can sort of tell that Oasis were coming towards an end. There was a lot of collaboration in terms of Gem writing songs, Andy Bell writing songs, Liam writing songs, and it became a little bit fractured in this album. Number 6, maybe controversially, Be Here Now I think it's a fantastic record. I really, really like it, and there's a lot of really good songs on it. If it hadn't been so bloated and long and all the feedback and everything like that, I think it would be a really, really good record. I think some of the songs are excellent. I Hope I Think I Know is one of my favourite Oasis songs. My Big Mouth, Do You Know What I Mean, are really good songs, but then you've got some utter dross on there, like Magic Pie. I don't know what Noel was trying to do with that. He was obviously trying to create some sort of I Am the Walrus kind of, or John Lennon-esque kind of song, but it was just awful. It was terrible. But it was interesting at the time. There were lots of positive reviews given to Be Here Now, because everybody missed the mark with What's the Story, Morning Glory, and gave that terrible reviews. So they went the other way and gave Be Here Now rave reviews, and then it didn't quite reach the heights, although it did sell. I think it's one of their best-selling albums, I think, if not the best-selling album, because of the hype that they had around the band at the time, which is understandable, really. But Noel always says about how if they'd have just taken another year out, or if they'd have used some of the songs that were B-sides from the time, like Master Plan or Talk Tonight, those kind of songs, he said the band would have been on another level, which you could argue that they would be, yes. In 5th place, I've gone for Heathen Chemistry. This was the band's return to form, really, after the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants album. But this has some really, really good songs. I think the start to the album with The Hindu Times is fantastic. And then you've got classics like Stop Crying Your Heart Out, Songbird, and Little by Little. These are really, really strong pieces of songwriting from Noel at this period. But it also was the first time that Gem Archer and Andy Bell had joined the band, replacing Bonehead and Guigsy. And their much better musicians, and you can sort of tell that as in this record and then the subsequent records that they are better musicians from this point onwards, but they have lost the sort of working man or the punch that they had in the first couple of albums where they felt like they were taking over the world. In fourth place, I've gone for Noel Gallagher's eponymous first album as a solo artist, Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. When this first came out, I was in university at the time, first year of university, and second year, sorry, and listened to it over and over and over again. In particular, the song "If I Had a Gun." It's one of my all-time favourite songs, and when I first heard it, it was like a proper punch to the stomach. It's one of those songs that makes you feel something physically. But he obviously had a huge catalogue of songs that he was keeping to himself in case of Oasis splitting up, and he smashed the glass in case of emergency, broke them open, and put together a really good first album. And it sounded a little like Oasis. I think there's some songs that didn't. The first single, The Death of You and Me, was released because it sounded so little like Oasis at the time. But the first half of the album I think is really, really good. I think it's his best first half of an album since Morning Glory, I would say. But yeah, there's sort of trails off towards the middle where you got Soldier Boys and Jesus Freaks. Stranded on the Wrong Beach are not brilliant songs, but they sort of serve a purpose to the album. And then finally, Stop the Clocks on that record has been a song that Oasis fans knew about for years and years before, and there was all sort of recordings of it, Noel playing it on acoustic guitars and what have you, and not really piecing together the whole song. And then Noel putting it together on this album. I don't know whether I was a little bit underwhelmed at the time, but it didn't sort of deserve the whole build up to it that it did. In third place for me, getting the bronze medal, is not actually a studio album, and you could argue then it should not be part of this list, but for me it's one of the best collections of Oasis songs, and that's The Master Plan. I think if this had been Oasis' third album, like I said earlier, it would have been amazing. It really shows Noel's arrogance as a songwriter at the time to have released songs like Acquiesce, Listen Up, Fade Away, Talk Tonight, Half the World Away as B-sides, as songs that were just on the other side of records. And Noel has said subsequently that, you know, there are great songs, great Oasis songs that people have not heard, and they have to go out and search for them. Well, they're here on this record that was released in 1998, and personally I think it's fantastic. There's some songs that you've got to listen to as well. Stay Young, I think, is one of the best Oasis songs. That the chord change in the chorus is something very un-Oasis-like. So you may have worked it out by now, there's only 2 albums left. We've got Definitely Maybe and Morning Glory, and that's the order that I'm going to talk about them in. I think Definitely Maybe for me is the second best Oasis record. I know that Noel himself puts Definitely Maybe as first, and that lots of other Oasis fans say that Definitely Maybe is the first, and I can't imagine what it must have been like in 1994 to listen to that for the first time, and the change in the music scene caused by Definitely Maybe being released like that. I think it would have been very, very exciting, particularly Live Forever, which Noel wrote in response to Nirvana's I Hate Myself and I Want to Die. Noel wrote Live Forever, based it largely around, I think the front cover of that single is of John Lennon's house. It's all to do with John Lennon when they used to play it live. Sometimes there'd be a picture of John Lennon in the background as well. They've lots of shameless references to the Beatles in the record as well. And, of course, lots of things that were stolen from various artists, no more so than in Cigarettes and Alcohol, with the T-Rex riff that was just completely stolen. But it was a fantastic introduction to the band, what it must have been like to have heard that for the first time. But then the way that they followed it up with Morning Glory, I think, is just unbelievable. I've been listening to that record a lot in the last couple of weeks. I bought it with the silver disc, silver vinyl a couple of weeks ago from Sainsbury's. But I've been listening to it, and I just can't believe the calibre of the songs on them. They've got... I remember when I first listened to it properly when I was about 13, and I asked my dad if it was if this was Oasis' greatest hits, because every song on it was amazing, and every song on it I knew already from when it came out when I was 4 years old. I could work out, you know, I can remember Some Might Say coming out and being on the radio, Roll With It I can remember being on the radio, Wonderwall I can remember being on the radio and stuff, and it was just, you know, you got these 10 songs and then the 2 sections of Swamp Song in between it. It's the best album of the 90s by far. It's Noel's at his absolute peak as a songwriter, and with all the stuff that's been coming out recently from Noel talking about the recording and the writing of that album, he sort of went into the studio with very little of the album finished, and I think that's probably worked out for the best. At the time, the band received a lot of criticism for it because it was a lot more softer and melodic and arguably commercial than Definitely Maybe was, but it sold records. Yeah, for the time, this was the big argument with Blur as well, that Roll With It went up against Country House, and well, Country House is a bit more of a commercial single and sold more records and finished first in the charts, but ultimately Oasis won the war, and the album sold loads and loads of records. I haven't got exactly the details here, but this is just personal opinion. Morning Glory, the #1 Oasis album. If you managed to make it to the end, thank you very much. If you've just found this channel from watching this video today, then please subscribe. There'll be lots. I know at the moment there's just Wolves content and football content on there, but there'll be more stuff like this, more videos about music or albums, other things that I enjoy doing as well, and hopefully people will enjoy that. If you don't, then just choose to watch the videos that you do. That's the beauty of YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.